The Risk Management of Everything channel presents Risk Management and Internal Control and Internal Control as a Risk Management Strategy. Welcome to the Risk Management of Everything channel. On this channel, you will see videos on risk management and the application of risk management to diverse areas and sectors. If you are new here, make sure to subscribe to our channel and press the notification button so you can be notified when we upload new videos. Thank you. This video discusses risk management and internal control. In this video, you will understand the meaning of risk management, the importance of risk management structure, risk management strategies, risk management process, limitations of risk management, internal control, the importance of internal controls, risk management and control, types of internal controls, preventive control, detective control and corrective control, components of an internal control system, benefits of internal controls, scopes of internal control, the importance of monitoring an internal control procedure, how to implement internal controls, risk management and internal control players, the three lines of defense model, implications of the three lines of defense for risk management and internal control, how to enhance enterprise risk management through internal audit, roles of internal audit in risk management, how to enhance enterprise risk management through internal audit, and limitations of internal controls. Now, let us start. What is risk management? Risk management encompasses identifying, analyzing, and responding to risk factors that form part of the life of a business. Risk management identifies, assesses, and controls threats to a firm's capital and earnings. Effective risk management means influencing future outcomes as much as possible by acting proactively rather than reactively. Therefore, effective risk management can reduce the possibility of a risk occurring and its potential impact. These threats or hazards could stem from various sources, including financial uncertainty, legal liabilities, strategic management errors, accidents, and natural disasters. IT security threats, data-related risks, and risk management strategies to alleviate them have become a top priority for digitized companies. As a result, a risk management plan increasingly includes companies' processes for identifying and controlling threats to their digital assets, including proprietary corporate data, a customer's personally identifiable information, PII, and intellectual property. Every business and organizations face the risk of unexpected, harmful events that can cost the company money or fold up. Risk management allows organizations to prepare for the unexpected by minimizing risks and extra costs before they happen. Importance of risk management. Understanding and controlling risk enable organizations to be more confident in their business decisions. An organization can save money and protect its future by implementing a risk management plan and considering the various potential risks or events before they occur. A robust risk management plan will help a company establish procedures to avoid potential threats, minimize their impact if they materialize, and cope with the results. Furthermore, strong corporate governance principles focusing specifically on risk management can help a company reach its goals. Risk management is beneficial to individuals, businesses, and organizations. Effective risk management ensures risks of a high priority are dealt with as aggressively as possible. The management must get data or information to make informed decisions and ensure that the business remains profitable. Essential benefits of risk management include: 1. Creates a safe and secure work environment for all staff and customers. 2. Increases the stability of business operations while also decreasing legal liability. 3. Protects from events that are detrimental to the company and the environment. 4. Protects all involved people and assets from potential harm. And 5. Helps establish a firm's insurance needs to save on unnecessary premiums. The importance of combining risk management with patient safety has also been revealed. For instance, the risk management and patient safety departments of many hospitals are separate units. They incorporate different leadership, goals, and scope. Moreover, hospitals must provide safe, high-quality patient care to protect their financial assets. As a result, they should be incorporated into risk management. Risk management structure. A risk management structure should do more than just identify potential risks. A good risk management structure should also calculate the uncertainties and predict their influence on a business. Consequently, the result is a choice between accepting risks and rejecting them. Acceptance or rejection of risks is dependent on the tolerance levels that a business has already defined for itself. Suppose a company sets up risk management as a disciplined and continuous process to identify and resolve risks. In that case, a risk management structure should support other risk mitigation systems. They include planning, organization, cost control, and budgeting. In such a case, the business will not usually experience many surprises because the focus is on proactive risk management. Risk management strategies. Risk management strategies should also attempt to answer the following questions. 1. What can go wrong? 2. How will it affect the organization? Consider the probability of the event and whether it will have a large or small impact. Consider both the workplace as a whole and individual work. 3. What can be done? What steps can be taken to prevent the loss? What can be done to recover if a loss occurs? 4. If something happens, how will the organization pay for it? Risk management process. There are 5 basic steps in managing risks. These steps are known as the risk management process. The risk management process is a framework for the actions that should be taken. Risk management entails identifying, analyzing, prioritizing, treating, and monitoring potential risks. However, it is necessary to emphasize that it is essential to understand the circumstances in a firm's risk management process. This is necessary to understand the context of the risk management process to establish the criteria used to evaluate the risk and define the structure of the required analysis. Here are the 5 steps of the risk management process. Step 1. Identify the risk. The company identifies and defines potential risks that may negatively influence a specific company process or project. The organization should uncover, recognize, and describe risks affecting the firm's project or outcomes. The risks identified at this stage should be used to create a risk register for the organization. Several techniques can use to identify organizational and project risks. Step 2. Analyze the risk. Risk analysis aims to understand each specific instance of risk and its influence on the company's operations. This is necessary to understand the nature of the risk and its impacts on the company's operations. After identifying potential risks, the next thing is to determine the likelihood and consequence of each risk. Once specific types of risk are identified, the company then determines the possibility of them occurring and their consequences. This information should also be recorded in the company's risk register. Step 3. Evaluate and rank the risk. The company must decide whether the risk is acceptable or severe enough to warrant treatment. It would be best to evaluate and rank the risk by determining the risk magnitude, which is the combination of likelihood and consequence. The risk is then further assessed after determining its overall probability of occurrence combined with the consequence. The company can then decide whether the risk is acceptable and whether it is willing to take it based on its risk appetite. The risk rankings information should also be recorded in the risk register. Step 4. Treat the risk, also known as risk response planning. During this step, companies assess their highest ranked risks and develop a plan to alleviate them using specific risk controls. These plans include risk mitigation processes, risk prevention tactics and contingency plans when the risk materializes. During this step, the company should assess the highest ranked risks and plan to treat or modify these risks to achieve acceptable risk levels. How could the company minimize the probability of threats and maximize opportunities? To address this situation, the company should create risk mitigation strategies, preventive plans, and contingency plans to treat the company's risk exposure. The company should also include the risk treatment measures for the risk register's highest ranking and most severe risks. Step 5. Monitor and review the risk. This is where the company should use the risk register to monitor, track and review risks. Part of the mitigation plan includes following up on risks and risk plans to monitor and track new and existing risks. The overall risk management process should be reviewed and updated regularly. Internal and external shareholders should be included in communication and consultation at each step of a risk management process. Limitations of risk management. While risk management can be an extremely beneficial practice for organizations, its limitations should also be considered. Many risk analysis techniques, such as creating a model or simulation, require gathering large amounts of data. This extensive data collection can be expensive and is not guaranteed to be reliable. Furthermore, data in decision-making processes may have poor outcomes if simple indicators reflect the much more complex realities of the situation. Similarly, adopting a decision throughout the project intended for a small aspect can lead to unexpected results. Another limitation may be the lack of analytical expertise and time. Computer software programs have been developed to simulate events that might harm the company. While cost-effective, these complex programs require trained personnel with comprehensive skills and knowledge to accurately understand the generated results. Analyzing historical data to identify risks also requires highly trained personnel. These individuals may not permanently be assigned to a project. Even if they are, there may not be enough time to gather all their findings, thus resulting in conflicts. Other limitations of risk management include 1. A false sense of stability. Value at risk measures focus on the past instead of the future. Therefore, the longer things go smoothly, the better the situation looks. Unfortunately, this makes a downturn more likely. 2. The illusion of control. Risk models can give organizations the false belief that they can quantify and regulate every potential risk. This may cause an organization to neglect the possibility of novel or unexpected risks. Furthermore, there is no historical data for new products, so there is no experience to base models on. 3. Failure to see the big picture. It is difficult to see and understand the complete view of cumulative risk. 4. Situation where risk management is immature in an organization. Most organizations' risk management policies are underdeveloped and lack the history to evaluate accurately. Having explained the meaning, importance, structure, strategies and process of risk management, let us discuss internal control. What is an internal control? Internal controls are policies, procedures, and technical safeguards that protect a firm's assets by preventing errors and inappropriate actions. Internal control, sometimes known as an internal safeguard, helps a company run its processes efficiently and effectively. There are several internal control frameworks to assist organizations in facilitating the implementation of regulatory compliance obligations and enterprise risk management, best practices. Perhaps the best-known framework is the Committee of Sponsoring Organizations, CSO, Internal Control Framework. The Committee of Sponsoring Organizations, CSO, defined internal control as a process designed to provide reasonable assurance that a firm's operation is effective and efficient, its financial disclosures are reliable, and it meets regulatory compliance objectives. Well-designed controls can empower your company to achieve its established objectives. Conversely, missing or poorly designed controls can result in inefficient processes, low productivity, costly errors, and fraud. These issues may reduce customers' patronage, harm the company's reputation, and result in financial losses, regulatory fines, and legal damages. Sound control helps to assure business continuity, prevent costly errors, avoid irregularities, prevent fraud, and maintain the integrity of financial statements and accounting records. Internal control allows a firm to 1. Increase transparency throughout the enterprise. 2. Promote accountability in every process and business unit. 3. Promote ethical behavior. 4. Identify problems and take corrective action. 5. Improve employees and the firm's productivity. 6. Maintain regulatory compliance. 7. Protect the company's reputation and brand value, and 8. Retain more customers and maintain an excellent competitive position. Importance of internal controls. As a business owner or shareholder, it is easy to understand why you need confidence in the accounting data. Not only do you need accurate data to make future decisions, but you also need to ensure it is error-free. Internal controls can help a business track down problems and errors, in a worst-case scenario, track down and prevent fraud. The importance of internal controls lies in their ability to protect your organization from risks and consequences. For example, information technology, IT, security controls reduce the risk of data breaches or malware infection. They help a firm find weak spots in its information systems and shore up those weak spots. Risk management and control. The Board of Directors, assisted by the Audit Committee, is responsible for monitoring and assessing the effectiveness of the company's internal control and risk management systems. Internal control and risk management ensure that the company's operations are effective, that financial and other information is reliable, and that the company complies with the relevant regulations and operating principles. Internal audit assists the Board of Directors with its monitoring responsibility by ensuring that the group's control measures have been planned and set up effectively. Types of internal controls. In general, internal controls fall into one of three categories: preventive, detective and corrective controls. Let us discuss these three types of internal controls. 1. Preventive control. Preventive internal controls are aimed at preventing an adverse event from occurring. As the name implies, preventive controls prevent issues before they occur, including accounting errors, material misstatements, fraud, or cyber attacks. For example, many applications have built-in checks and balances to avoid entering incorrect information. Preventive control is the best form of internal control because it reduces the need to detect mistakes after a mishap. Preventive control also helps to reduce the costs of errors and malicious actions. Automated preventative controls are even better because they remove the need for human intervention and streamline auditing. Some standard preventive controls are: segregation of duties, especially in accounting and financial reporting. System access controls. Employee training. Authorization and approvals of invoices and expenditures. Physical security controls. And pre-employment screening. 2. Detective control. Detective internal controls detect an error problem after it has occurred. Ideally, internal detective controls will discover an issue before it becomes a significant problem. Detective controls find errors and irregularities that have already occurred. They are essential because they show whether preventive controls are operating as intended and because they help improve process quality and prevent the recurrence of errors. Examples of detective controls include: monthly reconciliations of transactions, review of a firm's performance, particularly budget to actual comparison, physical inventories of cash, goods, or raw materials, and external and internal audits. 3. Corrective control. Corrective internal controls, by nature, are specific to your company's typical flaws and risks, previously evaluated through comprehensive risk assessments or detective controls, such as audits. Corrective internal controls are often implemented after detecting an internal problem. Corrective internal controls include disciplinary action, report filing, software patches or modifications, and new policies. Corrective internal controls are usually put into place after a root cause investigation. Corrective controls address issues that may lead to or exacerbate fraud, financial losses, or reputational damage. They include software patch management, Updated policies for information systems. Disciplinary action. And ledger verification. The best way to implement and integrate these controls into business processes is to use an established internal control framework such as the framework developed by COSO. As recommended by COSO, let us look at the 5 interrelated components of internal control systems. Components of an internal control system. The COSO internal control framework consists of 5 components that work together to create an effective system of internal controls. These 5 components of internal control represent the 5 objectives of a sound internal control system: control environment, risk assessment, control activities, information and communication, and monitoring activities. Let us discuss the components of an internal control system. 1. Control environment. A firm's control environment sets the attitude toward internal control adopted by management and employees. Although the control environment is intangible, it provides discipline and structure and encompasses ethical commitment and technical competence. Hence it serves as the foundation of all other components of internal control. The control environment provides a structure and discipline for internal controls. It aligns business processes with applicable laws, compliance requirements, and industry standard practices. It also assures that the company operates responsibly, ethically, and reliably while reducing its legal exposure. The environment sets the stage for the other elements of a firm's internal control system. It describes the company's culture and ethics, the management's philosophy and commitment to internal control policies, and the direction the board of directors provides. It also incorporates all several elements, including employees' competence and ethical values, management's operating style, assignment of authority and responsibility, and people development processes. 2. Risk assessment. Risk is any event that can prevent an organization from achieving its objectives. Risk assessment is the process of identifying and evaluating risks, both internal and external, and deciding how to respond to them. Continuous risk assessments, for example, once a year, allow the organization to identify risks and implement plans for risk elimination or mitigation. This step involves assessing each risk's possible impact and likelihood to minimize the potential for damage or losses. Such evaluations can help a firm to understand how risks relate to its business objectives and implement appropriate controls against them. Based on the results, management has to decide whether to accept the risk, reduce the risk to acceptable levels, or eliminate the risk altogether. 3. Control activities. Control activities are manual and automated tasks that help to assure risk responses are carried out effectively. Control activities are the policies and procedures to carry out proper risk responses and management directives. These controls help the organization achieve its business objectives while keeping risks low. They can occur at all levels and in all functions. Control activities include policies and procedures, authorization, approval, verification, security over assets, and segregation of duties. These activities occur across an organization and minimize or prevent risks that impede accomplishing the organization's objective and mission. Examples of control activities include segregation of duties, transaction verifications and reviews, reviews of operating performance, inventory counts, employee training sessions, physical and digital security, and data backups. 4. Information and communication. A company's control structure should capture and exchange information on risk within and outside the organization. It is also critical that necessary information be communicated promptly and accurately. Effective communication is a vital element of the internal control framework because it helps to assure that the proper controls are in place and working as expected. It is crucial to promptly share risk information throughout the organization and in a form that people can understand and use to take action. 5. Monitoring. Monitoring involves the evaluation of the effectiveness of a firm's internal control over a specific period to ensure that internal controls continue to operate effectively. Monitoring is effective when it leads to identifying and correcting control weaknesses to prevent negative impacts on the firm's objectives. Internal or external auditors must regularly monitor all internal controls to evaluate the control system's performance and effectiveness and ensure that rules are followed throughout the organization. Regular spot checks can help the organization identify control gaps and fix them before they harm the organization. Benefits of internal controls. Processes and control activities are imperfect, and mistakes and problems will inevitably be found. Therefore, an ongoing review and analysis of internal controls should be a part of a firm's normal processes. Management is ultimately responsible for the control environment and the success of internal controls. The benefits of internal controls depend upon correct implementation and ongoing monitoring. Advantages of internal controls include: 1. Early warning signs. Internal controls serve as an early warning system to identify issues before they become big problems. Problems are easier to fix when they are identified earlier. Quality checks prevent faulty products from being shipped to customers. The investigation into a slip in on-time delivery metrics may reveal a more significant problem on the horizon. 2. Prevent fraud. Robust internal controls deter employees from engaging in misconduct. Solid policies assure employees understand the consequences. When employees see process gaps, they may be tempted to perform minor inappropriate actions that eventually lead to major ones. With multiple checks and balances, however, fraud is much more difficult. 3. Avoid external audit findings and regulatory fines. Performing investigations and corrective actions on external audit findings can be arduous. Suppose an external audit identifies a significant gap in processes or material misstatements. In that case, the company might lose its industry certifications or receive substantial fines. Finding and fixing a problem is always best before an external entity discovers it. If the company still experiences a data breach, robust internal controls can protect the organization from huge fines. Suppose an investigation reveals that the organization acted with due diligence and had adequate controls. In that case, a regulatory agency may reduce penalties. Scopes of internal control. Following are the main areas which are generally covered by a sound internal control system. 1. Cash. An internal control mechanism can be applied to the company's payments and receipts to avoid cash misappropriation. 2. Sales and purchase control. An efficient control system ensures good purchase and sales transactions to strengthen the firm's internal control. 3. Financial control. Financial control ensures a sound accounting, recording and supervision system. 4. Employees' remuneration. Effective internal control system ensures good record keeping to avoid corruption and misappropriation. 5. Capital expenditure. Internal control system ensures a thorough assessment of capital expenditure and supervision of project execution. 6. Inventory control. Inventory control ensures efficient inventory handling, record keeping, and asset management. 7. Investment control. Internal control system ensures thorough documentation and assessment of a firm's investment portfolio. Importance of monitoring and internal control. A firm should monitor its internal controls. Internal control monitoring can be in the form of ongoing monitoring activities, separate evaluations, or both. Outside auditors can monitor controls and report the audit results to senior management or the board of directors. Internal controls monitoring helps a company easily oversee its operations to achieve the organization's goals. Monitoring internal controls helps an organization to achieve its strategic, operating, compliance, and reporting objectives. When monitoring is designed and implemented accurately, organizations find it easier to 1. Protect the effectiveness and efficiency of operations. 2. Identify and correct internal control problems on a timely basis. 3. Prepare reliable and accurate financial statements. And 4. Assure compliance with applicable laws and regulations. Internal control procedures. It is beneficial to describe the internal control procedures. A firm internal control procedure should be sound and robust. Here are the 7 internal control procedures: separation of duties, access controls, physical audits, standardized financial documents, periodic trial balances, periodic reconciliations, and approval authority. 1. Separation of duties. Separation of duties involves splitting responsibility for bookkeeping, deposits, reporting and auditing. The other tasks are separated, the less chance any single employee has of committing fraudulent acts. For small businesses with only a few accounting employees, sharing responsibilities between 2 or more people or requiring critical tasks to be reviewed by co-workers can serve the same purpose. 2. Access controls. Controlling access to different aspects of a firm's accounting system via passwords, lockouts, and electronic access logs can keep unauthorized users out of the system, thereby enabling system auditing to identify sources of errors or discrepancies. Robust access tracking can also deter attempts at fraudulent access in the first place. 3. Physical audits. Physical audits include hand-counting cash and any physical assets tracked in the accounting system, such as inventory, materials and tools. By bypassing electronic records, physical counting can reveal well-hidden discrepancies in account balances. Counting cash in sales outlets can be done daily or several times daily. Larger projects, such as hand-counting inventory, should be performed less frequently, perhaps annually or quarterly. 4. Standardized financial documents. Standard documents used for financial transactions, such as invoices, internal materials requests, inventory receipts and travel expense reports, can help to maintain consistency in record keeping over time. Using standard document formats can make it easier to review past records when searching for the source of a discrepancy in the system. A lack of standardization can cause items to be overlooked or misinterpreted in such a review. 5. Periodic trial balances. A double-entry accounting system adds reliability by ensuring that the books are always balanced. Calculating daily or weekly trial balances can provide regular insight into the system's state, enabling the firm to discover and investigate discrepancies as early as possible. Even so, it is still possible for errors to bring a double-entry system out of balance at any given time. 6. Periodic reconciliations. Periodic accounting reconciliations can ensure that balances in the company's accounting system match up with balances in accounts held by other entities, including banks, suppliers and credit customers. Differences between these complementary accounts can reveal errors or discrepancies in the company's bills, or the errors may originate with the other entities. For example, a bank reconciliation involves comparing cash balances and records of deposits and receipts between the firm's accounting system and bank statements. 7. Approval authority. The need for managers to authorize essential transactions to ensure proper accountability within the organization. Requiring approval for large payments and expenses can prevent unscrupulous employees from making large fraudulent transactions with the company's funds. How to implement internal controls. Now that you understand internal controls, let us consider how to implement internal controls. Developing an effective internal control system involves policies and procedures, including organizational structure, job descriptions, and an authorization matrix. Segregation of duties and responsibilities. Authorization and approval processes. Performance monitoring and control procedures. Methods for safeguarding assets, completeness, and accuracy. Manpower management. An independent internal audit function, and regulatory compliance and risk management. Like any other business process, when implementing a system of internal control, The order of actions the company take matters. Complete the foundation first for the most successful implementation. The company should not skip any steps when designing, implementing, operating, and monitoring the organization's internal control framework. 1. Establish a sound internal control environment. When implementing or improving a firm's internal controls, the control environment is essential to ensure a sound internal control system. An organization needs vision, skills, incentives, resources, and a plan to achieve its goals and objectives. A pull at the top by the board of directors or executive management will hinder or damage the other components of internal control. Establishing the control environment also involves creating a team of experts to carry out the internal control processes and upholding the company's commitment to integrity and ethical values. This team should be cross-departmental and ideally include senior management, the Chief Information Security Officer, a Privacy Officer, the Compliance Officer, and representatives from marketing, product management, human resources, and each central business line. The team member should be selected wisely because they will be responsible for managing the organization's risks. 1. Identify and analyze risks. The process of understanding a firm's risks starts with risk identification. The goal is to create a comprehensive list of risks for the entire organization. This includes risks to the company's IT infrastructure and the various software as a service, SaaS, platform as a service, PaaS, infrastructure as a service, IaaS, solutions, and third-party vendors used by the company. The company should also consider each risk's potential for fraud and misconduct. Once those risks are identified, group the risks by type: operational, environmental, strategic, financial, compliance, and so forth. This will make reporting these risks much easier in the long run. Risk assessment should be undertaken after identifying the company's risk exposures. Small businesses with limited resources sometimes use software to assess, mitigate, and monitor their risk management strategies. Regardless of size, all organizations should conduct risk assessments regularly, whether done internally or with the help of a software solution. Risk assessments can be performed for specific risk areas, including data risk management and information technology, IT, security risk management. Here are the 3 stages of a risk assessment. Develop assessment criteria. This step ensures that the team members assessing and prioritizing risks use the same metrics. High, medium, and low risk is the most common qualitative scale for measuring risk. Without these criteria, it will be challenging to interpret risk ratings throughout the organization. Still, the company should choose whatever scale works for her. Assess risks. This is where the company rates each risk based on the assessment criteria, and this step should be iterative. Ultimately, the result should be a risk rating for each risk based on the average likelihood and impact. Risk assessments can be conducted in various ways, including online surveys, in-person interviews, group workshops, or benchmarking. Prioritize risks. Risks can be prioritized based on assessment risk rating. Prioritization should include subjective factors, including reputational harm, health and safety, vulnerability, and other qualitative factors. Risk prioritization is a subsequent process that helps the organization expand the view of risks beyond financial impact and probability. Once the company has identified, analyzed, and prioritized risks, it is necessary to decide what to do about each risk exposure. To keep yourself from getting overwhelmed, we recommend first starting with your highest ranked risks and developing mitigation strategies for those risks. Any risks that require mitigation will need to be addressed by control activities. 1. Design and implement control activities. Control activities are implemented to address whatever risks management believes should be mitigated. Typically this is done through policies and procedures. These can be any organizational actions, including training, audits, access and controls. Typically the activities are categorized by type and nature. Control activities are specific actions that can be observed and documented for future inspection or re-performed by a third party. A risk-based approach should be adopted to design a firm's control activities to address the risk factors identified during the risk assessment stage rather than a predefined control list. Each organization faces unique challenges. Even if a firm uses the best framework for your industry, it is essential to customize the internal control framework to meet its peculiar needs. 2. Develop information and communication channels. For a firm's internal controls to work, personnel within the organization must understand their responsibilities. This is best achieved when individuals can see and understand how their activities affect the achievement of business goals and objectives. This should be an ongoing process that includes regular training personnel, making current policies and procedures available to staff and stakeholders, and communicating any other critical information promptly, whether via meetings or emails. 3. Establish monitoring activities. A firm's monitoring activities should consist of frequent evaluations that examine the implementation and operation of the 5 components of an internal audit. The findings should be evaluated against criteria established by your board of directors, management policies, industry standards, and regulators. Any deficiencies should be communicated to management and your board of directors. While internal controls are critical to risk management, they do have limitations. For instance, any process that involves human engagement will inevitably have shortcomings. And people are especially adept at finding vulnerabilities in internal control systems, accidentally or deliberately. An internal control review will help the company determine the effectiveness of internal controls, whether they are functioning as intended and if they can manage the organization's risks in its daily operations. This is the best way for a firm to enhance its internal control system and overall effectiveness. Ultimately, an internal control review will highlight any vulnerabilities in the firm's internal control environment and identify the processes that can be strengthened. Risk management and internal control players. Risk management and internal control are the entire company's business, from the governing bodies to employees. 1. Executive management or the executive board. Executive management is responsible for the quality of internal control and risk management systems, whether it acts directly or delegates its tasks. It is also responsible for designing and implementing internal control and risk management systems appropriate for the size of the company, its business and its organizational structure. This task includes defining the relevant roles and responsibilities within the company. Executive management ensures constant monitoring of internal control and risk management systems to ensure their integrity and improve them through adaptations to changes in the organization and environment of the company. It initiates any remedial measures necessary to correct problems identified and stay within acceptable risk limits. It also ensures that these measures are carried out. Executive management ensures that appropriate information is reported on time to the board of directors, the supervisory board, and the audit committee. 2. Board of directors or the supervisory board. The board's involvement in internal control and risk management varies from one company to the next. However, corporate governance regulations and commercial code requires the board of directors to give an account of risks in its management report, which must include description of the principal risks and uncertainties facing the company. Description of the principal risks and uncertainties facing the company is included in the consolidated financial statements. Information about the company's use of financial instruments. This information must deal with the company's objectives and policies regarding financial risk management. It should also address the company's exposure to price, credit, liquidity, and cash flow risks. In practice, the board should understand the nature of the internal control and risk management systems adopted and implemented by the executive management, organizational structure, roles and functions of the major players, procedures, risk reporting and control system monitoring structure. More specifically, it obtains a comprehensive overview of financial reporting procedures. The board ensures that the significant risks incurred by the company are in line with its strategies and objectives. Those risks should be critically considered by the company's management. Under these circumstances, the board is periodically informed of the operating results of these systems, the main problems detected during the previous period, and the plans of action decided by executive management. The board works with executive management to ensure that the company's monitoring, internal control and risk management systems are effective. This is necessary to ensure the efficiency and effectiveness of the company's financial system and reporting. The board may use its power to authorize auditing and verifications, if necessary, to ensure good corporate governance. 3. Audit Committee. The Audit Committee's role and duties should be clearly stated in the company's regulation regarding Audit Committee's creation and responsibilities. 4. Risk Manager. When the position exists, the risk manager, or the person in charge of risk management, is responsible for deploying and implementing executive management's overall risk management process. For this purpose, the risk manager establishes a structured system that is both permanent and adaptable to identify, analyze and manage the main risks. The risk manager runs the risk management system and provides methodological support to the company's line and staff divisions. 5. Internal Audit. When there is one, the Internal Audit Department is responsible, within the scope of its duties, for assessing the operation of the internal control system and making recommendations to improve it. It helps raise awareness and train management personnel in internal control. Still, it is not directly involved in the system's design or day-to-day running. The company's management ensures compliance with laws and regulations through internal processes. The internal audit manager draws up a work program in light of the main risks incurred by the company and reports the significant findings of work carried out to executive management and, following the procedures defined by each company, to the board. 6. Employees. Management in each entity ensures that the company's risk management policy is applied. It is responsible for using this policy and confirms that exposure to these risks complies with the executive management's risk management policy. Employees should be involved in the company's risk management and internal control activities. All employees concerned should possess the knowledge and information required for creating, operating and monitoring risk management and internal control systems in light of the objectives assigned to them. This is particularly true of line managers dealing directly with risk management, internal control systems, and internal controllers. 3 Lines of Defense, 3LD, Model. The Institute of Internal Auditors published a global position paper titled The 3 Lines of Defense in Effective Risk Management and Control in 2013. The concept has remained sufficiently crucial that a further position paper was published in June 2017 by the Chartered Institute of Internal Auditors, titled, The 3 Lines of Defense. The 3 Lines of Defense is increasingly adopted by various organizations to establish risk management capabilities across business organizations. This approach is often referred to as a 3LD model. 3 Lines of Defense 3LD model distinguish several business functions between risk owner and risk manager, the parts that deal with risk, also between overseeing risks and the independent assurance. These functions are essential in enterprise risk management, (ERM), with organizations in diverse sectors. The 3 Lines of Defense model is an organization's internal defense model, which can be summarized as follows. 1. The first layer of defense. The first layer of defense is implemented by the unit, component or business function that performs daily operation activities, especially those on the organization's front lines. This is formed by managers and staff responsible for identifying and managing risk as part of their accountability for achieving objectives. Collectively, they should have the necessary knowledge, skills, information, and authority to operate the relevant policies and procedures of risk control. This requires understanding the company, its objectives, the environment in which it operates, and the risks it faces. In this case, they are expected to ensure the conducive control environment in their business unit. Implement risk management policies on their roles and responsibilities, especially in activities that lead to corporate growth. They are expected to be fully aware of the risk factors that should be considered in every decision and action. Be able to execute effective internal control in their business units, as well as the monitoring process and maintaining transparency in the internal control. 2. The second line of defense. The second layer of defense is executed by risk management and compliance functions, especially in structured risk management and compliance units, for example department or risk management and compliance units. This provides policies, frameworks, tools, techniques and support to enable risk and compliance to be managed in the first line, conducts monitoring to judge how effectively they are doing it, and helps ensure consistency of definitions and measurement of risk. In this case, they are expected to be responsible for risk management development, monitoring process and implementation of the company's overall risk management. Monitor and ensure that all business functions are implemented under the company's risk management policies and standard operating procedures. And monitor and report to the department with the highest accountability on the entire company's exposure to risks. 3. The third line of defense. The third layer of defense is implemented by auditors, including internal and external auditors. This is provided by an internal audit. Audit committee reports to the board. The audit committee engage a risk-based approach to evaluate the effectiveness of governance, risk management, and internal control of the organization's governing body and senior management. It can also assure sector regulators and external auditors that appropriate rules and processes are in place and are operating effectively. The third line of defense plays a vital role by ensuring that the first two lines operate effectively and advising how they could be improved. The role of the internal auditor is much more intense in the three lines of defense model because they are part of the company that is independent by design. In this case, the internal auditors are expected to review and evaluate the design and implementation of risk management holistically, and ensure the effectiveness of the first layer of defense and the second tier. For public companies in countries that embrace a two-board system, the context of implementing the three lines of defense model can be seen from the perspective of governance structures in the existence of the company directors who have executive accountability and the board of commissioners who have oversight accountability. In addition to the regulations, the board of directors has an internal audit unit as part of the company's control, and the BOC has an audit committee as part of its implementation mechanisms of accountability. Implications of the three lines of defense for risk management and internal control. The three lines of defense model ensure integration of internal control and risk management within a firm's units or departments, including 1. The board of directors. The board of directors defines the strategy, approves the risk policy and appetite, and supervises risk management, monitoring the performance of the duties delegated to the executive committee. 2. The executive committee. The executive committee establishes and implements high-level controls, fosters organizational culture and commitment to internal control, and defines reporting lines and internal control powers and responsibilities. 3. The Chief Risk Officer. As a member of the Executive Committee, the Chief Risk Officer ensures that discussions about risk are consistent and effective at all levels. The Risk Management Committee, which often includes non-executive board members, is responsible for monitoring the company's main risks, evaluating the compliance with the tolerance levels and the execution and effectiveness of decided mitigation actions, assessing the firm's internal control and risk management systems, issuing appropriate opinions and recommendations, and evaluating compliance with the company's risk management policy. 4. The Audit Board. The role of the Audit Board is to monitor the effectiveness of the internal control and internal auditing systems and assess the functioning of the internal systems and procedures yearly, thereby contributing to enhancing the internal control environment. As part of its supervisory function, The Audit Board monitors the work plans and resources assigned to the internal audit and legal and governance departments and receives periodic reports from these departments, including the auditing reports and the annual compliance plan, as well as information on reporting matters, the identification or settlement of conflicts of interest and the detection of potential illegalities. The Audit Board meets monthly with the head of internal audit and quarterly with the head of legal and governance. It also receives the documentation and results of Risk Management Committee meetings. The board meets quarterly with the head of the Risk Management Department to discuss the group's most important risk management issues. The Audit Board also assesses the annual strategic guidelines and risk policy established by the Board of Directors. 5. External Auditor. Although the external auditor is outside the organization, it plays an essential role in the company's accounting and internal control system. The external auditor is responsible for auditing the company's accounting and internal control systems and making recommendations to the stakeholders, including the executive committee, the board of directors and the audit board. Similarly to the external auditor, the regulatory authorities are not part of the organization, but play significant regulatory roles and ensure firms' compliance. 6. Risk Management Department. The Risk Management Department is responsible for implementing the internal control system between the company bodies, departments and committees to achieve the organization's goals and objectives. Generally, the Risk Management Department is responsible for establishing, monitoring and assessing risks and mitigation measures, maintaining alignment with the approved policies and strategies. Establishing and monitoring, through its information security team, cybersecurity policies and procedures. Ensuring the consistency of principles, concepts, methodologies and the risk assessment and management tools of all the group's business units and companies. Assessing whether the risks identified by the business units, risk owners, are within the established tolerance levels. Ranking risks according to their priority, probability and impact. Reporting the risks to the Chief Risk Officer and the Risk Management Committee, and ensuring effective implementation of the risk management system, fostering a risk-aware culture by demonstrating the relevance of such matters to the Executive Committee, the Risk Management Committee and the group's business units and companies. 7. The Legal and Governance Department. The Legal and Governance Department establishes ethical and compliance controls and monitors the internal control system by conducting internal inquiries, audits or risk assessments on ethics and compliance matters, such as bribery and corruption, money laundering and terrorism financing, fraud, conflicts of interest, political, economic and financial sanctions and other restrictive measures, compliance with financial and market regulations, as well as by conducting due diligence on the same issues for relevant partners and transactions. Additionally, it administers training to the company's employees on compliance matters. The department appraises ethics and compliance performance in the various business units. It also develops special projects to consistently improve the firm's compliance with ethics and regulatory matters. 8. The Local Risk Officers. Unit or department risk officers assist the organization's business units responsible for identifying, assessing and managing the risks in their respective business units, in line with risk management standards. They are also responsible for incorporating risk information into their decision-making processes and ensuring compliance with the approved risk management policies and procedures. Roles of internal audit in risk management. In today's world, processes and operations have become more complex, and new risks have emerged. Organizations are trying to give more considerations to risk management, however, they struggle with the decision of differentiating the internal audit functions and risk management functions. The best approach is to have a separate internal audit and risk management function. Still, operationally this is difficult to implement, time-consuming and costly. Most organizations have internal audit functions but do not have a risk management function. Therefore, The internal audit function undertakes the risk function in organizations without a practical risk management function. The three levels of defense in a practical risk management control framework are operational management as the first line of defense, risk management as the second level defense function, and internal audit as the third level of defense responsible for entity-wide assurance. The primary role of the internal audit in risk management is to guarantee the effectiveness of the risk management process. However, in cases where they play the same role, internal audit takes a consultative role in risk management. This is done through assessing and monitoring the company's risks to recommend appropriate risk mitigation controls and assessing the system's internal controls and the governance processes in an organization. The internal audit roles include setting the risk appetite, supporting risk management processes, taking decisions on risk response, implementing risk responses on management's behalf, and accountability for risk management. These roles majorly lie in operational management. The role of a firm's internal auditors includes 1. Ensuring that the risk assessment identifies those risks presenting the most significant risks to shareholder value. 2. Facilitating risk management discussions across the organization. 3. Viewing risk management as a core competency and ensuring that auditors receive appropriate training on risk and risk management practices. 4. Reviewing business plans to determine whether they assess the risks embedded in their strategies and have risk monitoring and trigger points. 5. Review the annual report to determine whether risks are addressed appropriately. 6. Continuously monitoring and assessing stakeholder expectations relative to risk and risk management and educating these stakeholders. 7. Building a stronger relationship with other risk and control business functions to drive an enhanced process to identify emerging risks. 8. Identifying and sharing best practices in risk management. Suppose the role of internal audit and risk management function is performed by the same unit or department. In that case, it is advised that reporting is done to two different managers for transparent governance and non-bias. A practical internal audit function plays a significant role in the organization by understanding the system of internal controls, the effectiveness of critical controls, governance, and the effectiveness of the risk management processes. Enhancing enterprise risk management through internal audit. There are 8 primary steps internal audit teams can engage in collaborating with stakeholders to manage a firm's risk. The 8 steps include: 1. Ensure collaboration among the 3 lines of defense. There are many adaptations of the 3 lines of defense approach to involve business lines, risk management, compliance, and audit team collaboration in identifying and managing risks. The unique factors impacting every organization must be considered in coordinating the 3 lines of defense duties and the underlying role of each group in the risk management process. The 3 lines of defense can be summarized as follows. The first line of defense consists of lines of business, LOB department managers who are risk owners. The second line of defense consists of risk management, control management, and compliance professionals with limited independence in identifying and mitigating risks. The third line of defense consists of risk assurance professionals with greater independence, such as internal audit reporting to the audit committee or other governing bodies. The 3 lines of defense should exist in every organization, regardless of size or complexity. A modified version of this framework is needed for organizations, including government agencies, to effectively identify and mitigate risks. 2. Adopt a risk management methodology or framework. The chief audit executives need to position internal audit as an internal disruptor, relentlessly challenging the status quo and identifying and focusing on emerging risks. An objective methodology should be used to evaluate and prioritize risks in the organization's strategic direction. A comprehensive risk assessment methodology should include mitigation strategies in the context of the organization's resources, such as culture, PR processes, technology, and risk tolerance. The process should be ongoing and provide flexibility to make timely changes as new information becomes available. 3. Establish operational risk management, ORM, and Chief Risk Officer, CRO, roles and authority. How much authority do the ORM and CRO have in influencing critical decisions? ORM is a highly specialized function requiring complex data analysis and modeling skills with the responsibility to identify and monitor risk exposures against risk appetites. Executives, committees, and business unit managers making critical decisions might not view risks through the same lens as ORM experts. Could there be instances when ORM predicted an incident but lacked the authority to mitigate the risks? It happens all the time. Any disconnects between ORM conclusions and management decisions should be taken seriously by an independent function, such as an internal audit, for further review. 4. Conduct continuous monitoring and assessments. Internal audit practitioners frequently discuss the concept of continuous auditing and monitoring, but not often implement it. A Deloitte white paper titled Continuous Monitoring and Continuous Auditing, From Idea to Implantation provides two critical explanations for why some organizations implement continuous monitoring and auditing. First, management has not seen a strong business case for establishing constant monitoring or continuous auditing in their organizations. Second, management lacks a clear picture of implementing continuous monitoring and auditing. Considering organizations' increasing threats and the dynamic nature of risks, an inflexible or static annual audit plan approach might not provide the responsiveness needed for internal audits to quickly change course and address evolving risks. In theory, using risk and control self-assessments, RCSA, seems to be a practical approach. However, the output of the RCSAs and the skills of the risks owners might highlight inefficiencies in identifying and mitigating evolving risks. 5. Perform test of design, TOD, and test of operating effectiveness, TOE, for high-risk controls, processes, and functions. Internal controls that mitigate critical risks to the organization across various line of business, LOB, functions are the logical places to start. Suppose the cost of implementing a given control should not exceed the benefits of that control. In that case, some prioritization element is needed to determine which controls to test. Management and internal audit can use other subjective factors to include operational or compliance needs and select other areas to perform test of design, TOD, and test of operating effectiveness, TOE. It is unreasonable to use the company's limited resources to perform extensive TOD and TOE without a focused risk management approach. With adequate planning and emphasis, TOD and TOE are critical tools for management and internal audit in navigating volatile risk environments to create value. Findings from controls testing create value if recommendations are appropriately documented in a way line of businesses can understand disconnects and see the value of remediating issues to prevent reoccurrence. 6. Achieve line of business collaboration and consensus on findings and recommendations. For the three lines of defense to function correctly, stakeholders, including ORM and CRO, must collaborate extensively during the audit planning, execution, reporting, and remediation phases. Without this level of participation, internal audits will run into several roadblocks along the way to navigating volatile risk environments. For any collaboration expected from line of business leadership, internal audit should have obtained their blessing on which areas to review as part of annual or periodic audit planning. The internal audit team's interpersonal, problem-solving, communication, and technical skills are the foundations of any effort to obtain consensus on findings and recommendations. The desired output is LOB processes and controls to mitigate risks and prevent reoccurrence. 7. Help foster a positive corporate culture and tone at the top. Quantifying and qualifying the impact of failures of culture and tone at the top, if not adequately addressed, are near impossible in the long term. Consistent failures arise from the poor tone at the top, subculture clashes across different line of business within an organization, lack of skills to identify and mitigate critical risks, and inability to implement continuous monitoring and oversight of essential functions. Few examples that could expose an organization to significant risks. Internal audits will see these dynamics at varying levels in executing the company's missions. Failures to accept the reality and risks associated with these problems can be directly linked with the inability of the internal audit function to navigate volatile risk environments to create value. 8. Consider external factors that could encourage excessive risk-taking. There are no easy solutions for regulators to effectively enforce regulations across industries to protect consumers and create desired outcomes. Regulators are often behind the times or allow loopholes, usually temporary, in enforcing rules. Management often uses these loopholes, or the everyone is doing it rationale to justify excessive risk-taking. Internal audits must understand external factors and loopholes used by management to obscure the actual risk landscape and implement adequate processes to identify and mitigate risks. The 8 steps discussed are not the totality of the internal audit's role in helping the organization identify and manage risk. They provide a solid roadmap for internal audits to navigate the volatile and complex risk environment and create organizational value. Executives and managers should empower risk management and internal audit teams to identify risks, prioritize risks, evaluate the underlying process and systems related to risk management, and assess the design and implementation of internal controls to mitigate risks. Significant risks must be identified, and mitigation strategies and controls implemented promptly to avoid long-term financial losses and reputational damage. Limitations of internal controls. Following are the inherent limitations of internal control. Management's decision to choose a cost-effective control system may reduce the effectiveness of the internal control system. There are chances of misuse by someone of authority operating on an internal control system. Objectives of internal control systems may be defeated by the manipulation of management. Since the internal control system is involved in routine transactions, irregular transactions may be overlooked. Changes in conditions may affect the effectiveness of the internal control system. Furthermore, it is necessary to highlight the gaps left by internal controls to ensure that those risks are understood. 1. Collusion, segregation of duties is one of the most prevalent internal controls businesses use. It separates tasks so that no one employee has the power to commit fraud. However, employees can get past this by collaborating in an elaborate process to disguise their fraud. 2. Human error. Human error can be another disadvantage of internal controls, mainly when relying on manual processes and judgment calls. For example, mistakes can be made during manual inventory counts, and poor judgment could impact internal audit results. Automated systems should be employed wherever possible to drive consistency and reduce human error. Automated systems can help perform reconciliations among accounting and financial records. For example, scales can be used in stockrooms to verify inventory counts. Solid auditing processes and management oversight will support rigorous internal auditing standards. 3. Unforeseen circumstances. Internal controls rely on a company's management anticipating all potential hazards and implementing mechanisms to prevent or mitigate them. Still, management cannot anticipate all potential challenges or events. Random variables or occurrences are prone to render internal controls ineffective. Moreover, attempting to control unusual conditions can be costly, and a management team may instead accept the risk. As a result, internal controls may be limited in their use under unexpected or extraordinary scenarios. Lastly, let us highlight the limitations of risk management and internal control. Limitations of risk management and internal control. No matter how well conceived and rigorously a firm's risk management and internal control systems are, they cannot guarantee that the company's objectives will be reached. The probability of achieving these goals depends on more than just the company's will. Every system and process has its limitations. These limitations stem from many factors, such as uncertainty about the outside world, the use of sound judgment or problems that may arise from technical and human failures or from common errors. Risk management choices are made by assessing opportunities against the cost of risk management measures, considering their potential effects on the occurrence and/or consequences of the risk to avoid taking needlessly expensive action. Conclusion. This video has discussed internal control as a risk management strategy. Risk management encompasses identifying, analyzing, and responding to risk factors that form part of the life of a business. Risk management identifies, assesses, and controls threats to an organization's capital and earnings. A robust risk management plan will help a company establish procedures to avoid potential threats, minimize their impact should they occur, and cope with the results. Internal controls are policies, procedures, and technical safeguards that protect an organization's assets by preventing errors and inappropriate actions. The importance of internal controls lies in their ability to protect your organization from risks and consequences. Internal controls fall into three categories: detective, preventative, and corrective. I hope this video is educative and beneficial to you. Please post your comments below in the comments section. If this video has been educative and beneficial, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Thank you for seeing the Risk Management of Everything videos. We love to hear from you. Please post your comments and questions in the comment section down below. If you are new here, make sure to subscribe to our channel, the Risk Management of Everything channel, and press the notification button so you can be notified when we upload new videos. Thank you.